Welcome to Key Questions for Key Staffers. My name is Jim Adderholt. I'm the Vice Mayor for the town of Fort Myers Beach. This is a show where we find subject matter experts who have really interesting takes and knowledge on what's happening post-Hurricane Ian for Fort Myers Beach. We have a special key staffer. We have the key staffer with us today, Keith Wilkins, who's our interim town manager. Again, one of the things we like to do is we'll post this on our social media platforms for the town. And we ask our friends in the media, and they've been so kind. The folks on Beach Talk Radio have been showing this before their regular scheduled programming. We ask our friends at the Observer and the News Press and all the local TV stations to link to these shows when it's relevant to one of the stories that they're reporting on. And we also ask our friends on social media who are on Facebook in particular, which has been so helpful in getting the word out around Fort Myers Beach about some of the challenges post-Ian, that if you like what you see today and you find it interesting and you think it would be helpful to your friends and neighbors, please post the show on your Facebook page and help us get the word out. Abraham Lincoln said, let the people know the facts and the country will be saved. And this is our small attempt to do so here at Fort Myers Beach. Again, this morning we have Keith Wilkins, who's one of a pair of our kind of co-town managers. He's on the ground here for the next few months. Keith, welcome. It's good to have you with us this morning.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
And one of the things we try to do with this show is again, have complete transparency about all the challenges the town is facing. And one of the things I want to start off with today is we've got some personnel needs. We've got some vacancies, and we have a pretty wide viewer audience now. We've got people that watch the show from all over the country. They've got friends and family and business colleagues. And this is an opportunity to get the word out about some of these personnel opportunities. Quite frankly, really interesting career opportunities here in Fort Myers Beach. So let's talk a little bit about some of those challenges, and let's go through some of them individually. So if folks who are watching know of somebody who might be qualified or interested, they can then get that information and apply to the town of Fort Myers Beach and live in this paradise that is going to be a paradise again real soon. So Keith, why don't you just talk a little bit about maybe the overview of some of the personnel challenges, and let's go through some of the individual positions.
Okay, that'd be great. When we came in from the date of the hurricane, we've had a 23% turnover. So that's a lot of positions, and it's too high of a rate. We need better retention than that, and good recruiting. So in addition to that turnover, we had some holes in the organization that are positions that I think are integral to our operation, such as a finance director. We need top-notch finance people, human resources. So and then the town manager position. So we have vacancies from maintenance worker all the way to my job that we'd like to fill.
Let's go through some of them individually for our listeners who may know of somebody who has these particular skill sets that might help get the word out a little bit about some of these openings and maybe get some applicants that maybe are a little bit more non-traditional or just folks who may not know about the opportunity down here at Fort Myers Beach. Let's go through some of these. So what would be your priority in terms of number one?
I'd say number one would be the town manager position, because the message I've gotten from council is that they really want to work on a cultural change within the organization. So I think the town manager position is very important for that. And also that gives the town manager the opportunity to hire his staff and bring the new positions, fill them with people that he trusts and that he values, not necessarily what I value.
And the town manager position is a collaborative, really, because the town charter allows the council to have a role in the town manager position as well as the town attorney position. But obviously, we're working very closely with you and Chris, your partner, Chris Hawley, is the interim town manager in this search. So talk a little bit about what you, given your experience, are looking for in a town manager, and some of the basic attributes that you think people ought to be looking for, that we ought to be looking for a town as we move forward on this.
I think most important is that it's obviously somebody that has the skills, the organizational skills, the governmental experience, probably preferably Florida. Our government's somewhat unique, but also they need to be a people person. They need to be able to relate and establish good relations with the citizens and understand the citizens' positions with or without a disaster. And then also with the elected officials and the other jurisdictions around. We've got to, I'm calling it, play well in the sandbox with others. And
somebody who's collaborative.
Right, collaborative. You have to be able to collaborate. You have to understand others' positions and hopefully they understand your position and work together. You know, we share a lot of resources with the sheriff, with fire, and we rely on them. So we want to support them also in their missions, and we would expect the same. So, but you really got to do it in a good, friendly, collaborative nature, and that's something that is very important to me anyway, and has been in my career, to be able to get along with people and with staff. I think some of the largest shortcomings I've seen throughout my career with staff is their inability to work well with others. Because if you can't work well with others, and you're cutting off that resource, and that just leaves you another big hole in your organization. So that's important. Like I said, I think organizational skills and management are important, and then knowledge of government operations. That's finance, that's government human resources, and then just our own operations. It's different than the private sector. I've worked both, and it's different than the private sector.
Now, the word on the town, and that's a little bit more high profile, is the word getting out around Florida and quite frankly throughout the country that, in other words, this position's been posted, and I assume through the Florida League of Cities, we let people know we're looking. Or can you talk a little bit about how the search is going?
Yeah, it's going well. This is a tough profession, tough position to fill, but there are people there. We have advertised nationally. We've advertised not just on our website and through Indeed, but also through the Florida League of Cities, Florida Association of Counties, the International City County Management Association, which does truly get nationally. Probably a few other locations I'm not thinking of right now, but we're advertising nationally for this. We don't have a recruiter for any of these positions. We've not hired a recruiting firm. We're doing it ourselves in-house.
And so you've been a town manager, and you're currently serving as an interim one, as is Chris. Is there anything that in your ideal candidate scenario, anything specific that you're looking for, anything that came across your desk, you'd be like, wow, this is interesting to me. What is that? What are some of those attributes, or not attributes as much as qualifications, that would just all of a sudden get your attention and say, this is something we need to at least explore further?
Yeah, I think it's someone who has a broad variable experience, not so narrow, because you deal with everything from land use planning to public safety and everything in between, parks and recreation, children, adults. So it's got to be somebody who really has a broad spectrum is something I look for.
And so again, putting your hat of experience on, you've got the dynamic of somebody coming in with this massive recovery effort going on, which is both potentially discouraging and encouraging to candidates, because it's a tremendous professional challenge. And of course, you always have the advantage of living in paradise here at Fort Myers Beach, which is a nice plus. But it is a tough job, and it's a well-paid job. How do you think those issues, as we're looking for candidates coming out of a hurricane like this, does it make it harder to find somebody? Does it make it, do people out there see this is a tremendous professional opportunity and challenge for me? What are the pros and cons of our current situation with respect to recruiting?
It has to be somebody that embraces a problem, and meaning like you run to a problem, you don't run from a problem. Because with the redevelopment there's all sorts of things where our ordinances may conflict with the new direction that we want to go, and changing those ordinances, understanding the situations that people are in, and they just want to get back to their homes. So maybe they're going to live in their driveway in an RV or a trailer for 18 months, and understanding that's okay for our community. And then understanding also in the long haul what you want to get back to, and setting some limits. Okay, fine. Live in a trailer, live in your RV for 18 months, 24 months, what it takes, make progress on getting your house to redevelop. Again, it takes somebody, I think, that's really a people person, but also has the technical skills to carry the city through that. And everybody's not going to be interested in that, but you've got to be a person that embraces the situation that we're in.
And Keith, some of the other important positions, you want to discuss some of those individually and just talk a little bit about those attributes that you're looking for?
Yeah, finance director is key. We didn't have a finance director prior, and that's critically important, particularly now with all the different sources of money that are coming in to help us recover our operations. You've got federal dollars, you've got state dollars, and then there's local dollars like tourist development tax dollars, and how to utilize those and how to stack those different funding sources to achieve what you need to achieve, such as with our town hall. So we really need somebody that is skilled with multiple funding sources, with different governmental revenue generation, and then private sector and grants too, because we're looking for all of that.
Any particular education background or certifications that you're looking for that job?
There's an organization of the Public Finance, Governmental Finance Association that I think it's important to understand that government finance is different than private sector finance. And because you're a CPA doesn't mean that you really understand government. It kind of takes all of that together. So I would say, again, sort of broad experience, and certainly governmental experience in Florida helps a lot.
It looks like we've got a utilities director position that's been posted as well. Talk a little bit about, I've got a utilities background, but it's not granular or technical like what we would need. Talk about that candidate and what kind of professional certifications they would need and what background you would be looking for in a utilities director.
So our utilities are distribution of drinking water and our stormwater utility. We don't produce our own water, but we do have some treatment to keep it chlorinated and sanitary. And in stormwater, we work collectively with the county on both of these. Actually, the county delivers our water to us, and we own the distribution system. And so there's a real public works technical aspect to that. There's a distribution certification that's required for that. And right now we're looking for someone that can help us bridge all of those. And then the stormwater side of it, we're getting rid of water. We're getting rid of stormwater there. And there's federal compliance with what we discharge to Estero Bay and how that's retained, treated before it's discharged. And town's really doing a good job with that because it's always sensitive when you're discharging your stormwater into a surface water body, but we have the treatment systems in place on all of our discharges. So you need to have both sides of that, the intake for the clean water, drinking water, and then the discharge of stormwater.
And as we've talked about before, the sewage piece is really, that's something that the county, is done by the county, but we do the billing for it. But so that the sewage piece isn't as critical as the water and the stormwater piece in terms of one's background. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the billing is critical. The customer service side of this, particularly as we have so many disconnected properties right now, and as properties come back online again, just the customer service of getting that established, of disconnecting an account, because we're gonna have a lot of disconnects right now, and getting all that done versus bringing people back online and reconnecting, and then the sewer fee is based on your water consumption, so that's all tied together.
So just so we don't scare away any potential candidates, the water distribution infrastructure is almost brand new. We've replaced it over the last few years, so that's great and that's functioning. Obviously, the stormwater side, we're going to have to hire somebody to clean out all the sand and other debris from the storm. But the system itself, in terms of the water distribution system, is in pretty good shape, all things considered.
Yeah, our systems are in good shape. They're obviously subsurface, so they are in good shape. We're applying for mitigation funds to elevate some of our lift stations, which will elevate our lift stations. Anyway, yeah, we're applying for mitigation funds from FEMA to do that. So while our systems are new, and as I said, the stormwater is they have treatment on all of our discharges there. They're in good shape. Certainly, there's some repairs to be made. There's some modifications to make it more resilient, but it's not a hard job other than just the customer service and sorting out somebody that has a $2,000 water bill because it leaked after the storm, and forgiving those costs, and the customer service side of that's critically important.
So our viewers, many of whom may be up north where it's really cold right now, if they have a friend in the utility business who's got this kind of background, please share that with them because they can live down here in paradise. And obviously it's beautiful all the time down here. We've got some post-Hurricane Ian challenges, but once those are resolved, it's a pretty good gig down here in terms of being utility director.
It is. I really believe it's opportunity, not problems or opportunities. And it's a great gig. I mean, I'm discovering that myself. I'm not from here, and I'm in love with the place. I'm trying to talk my wife and let's buy some property here and finish my retirement here.
Well, Keith, what other kind of opportunities are there, especially with the town?
Human resources manager also. We really need to organize our personnel policies more than they were, creating job descriptions, creating pay and classifications systems. And we actually have that out right now on an engagement for a firm to give us a pay and class study so that we know we've got equitable pay for equitable positions across the board. So that's underway right now, and filling those gaps with real seasoned human resources professional is critically important to us and to the morale of employees. They want to be paid for what they do at a market rate, which is fair enough.
What other kind of opportunities are available?
Well, in utilities, customer service and building supervisor, we have that position to fill.
So that they would supervise the administrative staff on the utility side, take customer inquiries, billing inquiries, obviously respond and appropriately and deal with those various challenges and inquiries. And it's more of an administrative role.
Yes.
Are you looking for somebody with a utility background or more of a customer service background, call center background? What do you want?
I think the utility background is something that can be learned. I think what's always of critical importance is how we interface with our customers. So customer service, I think, is just the personality type that really can understand and get along with people and work positively. Because when you're in that position, you're going to be getting complaints and people's problems, and you have to sort through it. And you want it to be a positive experience to get to that solution.
Keep going through the list.
Okay. Permitting clerk in our building permitting department. We have a lot of help right now from the state that they're providing, but we do have one internal vacancy that we need to fill, and so we're soliciting for a permitting clerk.
Does that person need permitting experience necessarily?
That would help. Yes, okay. It does help, and particularly Florida experience because of the Florida Building Code.
Okay.
So, and then our own land development code here too. We need to make sure that. And across Florida, they're somewhat similar, but there are different. Anyway, yes, that industry experience would help very much. And then also our beach and streets patrols that we have, which is kind of an ambassador service. It's also an enforcement service. And
we used to call them ambassadors, and I'm glad you used that word because I much prefer that word
right.
Enforcement, because they are ambassadors for our community, and we're trying to, at least from my perspective, we're trying to shift the mindset to a punitive relationship with our residents as opposed to a collaborative. I much prefer a collaborative relationship.
Right.
If we find somebody doing something wrong, we give them a heads up. We try to educate people in advance. So there used to be sort of a mindset, the more fines we collect, the better enforcement's doing. To me, if we're finding somebody, we're failing along the lines in many
right.
instances. There are certainly some bad actors that will eventually have to be fined. But for the most part, people are just trying to move along with their lives. They don't understand all the minutiae of the ordinances. And we have to do an education piece, but we're also, when the enforcement people are out there, they're collaborating, they're advising, they're helping, they're giving initial warnings so people can correct behavior. Because the ultimate objective is not to punish and fine, it's to bring them into compliance. And so I think this is such an important role, and I'm glad you used the term ambassador. We just don't use it. We haven't used that term in a long time, and I think it's the appropriate term.
It's important. People come here to relax, to vacation, to retire and enjoy lives, and it's education and information first. And certainly at some point it could get to enforcement. But ultimately, and with all these programs now that we're recovering back from the storm, obviously there's a lot of leniency to be granted to everyone. Everybody's been through this hardship, our employees as well as just citizens of the island. But we want to educate and say, okay, this is coming back online, such as right now, we have a lot of swimming pools in the area that are open and they need to be fenced. We're not going to enforce on somebody immediately. We're going to educate people to let them know, one, they might be in Minnesota and not be aware of the situation. So we want to let everybody know that this is a need that we have for public safety before we get to enforcing people.
What kind of professional background would you look for someone in enforcement in these types of positions?
Again, I think it's the ability to relate to people is of the utmost importance. You don't want somebody to come with a big stick first, and it's come in, understand the situation they're in, work with them, see that they're trying to progress or not first, and then I would say policing, but not maybe necessarily police, but certainly that helps if you have a strong customer service approach. But somebody that knows rules and can gradually get to that point.
Potentially someone who has had a law enforcement background, public safety background, even somebody who's got a contractor background, that has that professional contracting skill set. But like you said, the most important thing is their approach to people.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Yep.
Anything else on
We have some positions on hold right now that we will be filling later as our budget resumes and gets back in line. Museum educator and a museum curator also, and then in our recreations, some youth and teen program coordinators. Right now we don't have our community center online.
Right.
When we do, we're going to be filling in those positions in recreation. A couple of recreation aides also to assist with those programs. And then in public works, a couple of maintenance worker positions, what we'll be filling in as our budget fills back.
Keith, for people that might be watching that are intrigued or know somebody who might be intrigued by these positions, how do they find out? Do they go on can they find these positions posted on our website?
Every position will be posted on our website at a minimum.
Okay.
And then we will go out to Indeed and electronic, mechanisms. And if it's a professional position, to those professional associations.
But they can apply through the website,
Absolutely.
or at least submit an application?
Yes.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
As we talk about, just as an aside, we have, for those who don't know, most people know, we have a litany of advisory committees that help the council do their business, and they're all different subject matter areas. The LPA, the local planning agency, is one of those advisory committees. That's unique in that it's actually referenced in statute. They've already started their work. We've got 7 members on that. That's a full advisory committee. But as we talked about on the council meeting, it's important to get those up and running. It takes a little time. We've got staff that needs to work with those folks, and I think that's good. Everyone is interested in having that start up again as soon as we can. I would mention that I was assigned and the councilors are all assigned to be liaisons to these various committees. I was assigned to the Anchorage Advisory Committee, which handles the mooring field. And I just was talking to the former chair of the mooring committee, Kathy Light. Her and her husband Jay have moved to North Carolina because they had some real challenges with the storm, and they just decided. She was very gracious, and they've done a lot of service to our community. So we have an opening on the Anchorage Advisory Committee. So if anybody knows of somebody who's got a boat or has used a mooring field either here or elsewhere, has a little experience in that area, it's a great way to get involved in the community. And if you have some knowledge in that area and want to be part of the sort of the oversight of the mooring field, the mooring field always it's growing, and we really were in a great place before the storm. Now we've got all kinds of challenges again. You mentioned you want to give a brief update on the mooring field. What do you?
Yeah, we're starting construction on 19 new mooring balls, and we're continuing our assessment on the 40, 50, 60 prior locations, mooring locations. So we're still assessing the damage there. There's still 10 or so boats that are sunken there that we need to get out. So we're cleaning all that out, but that's all underway. The real area we need to progress with is our landside support for that.
The laundry showers.
Laundry showers, restroom facilities, yes, and then management of the fields themselves.
Before we move away from personnel, I like to hear you talk about the words change of culture. Tell me, when we talk about the change of culture for the town and the personnel that serves the town, in my experience, I'm a big fan of the term servant leadership, where people who work for the town have a mindset that they work for the people, not the other way around. You talked about changing the culture. Talk a little bit about what you mean by culture change.
Okay. One, like you say, servant leader, or from my Rotary experience, it's service above self. We do work for the citizens, and it's important to remember that. And in my college days, I actually worked in retail where the customer's always right. And that's the truth. The customer's always right. And my position is you try to find a way to get to yes rather than just say no. How do we get to yes? But for the staff, I think it's staff morale that they feel comfortable to say, I made a mistake, or they feel comfortable that they don't know the answer and we'll go get the answer, but that everything is transparent, out on top of the table, and there's no repercussions for asking a question. There's no repercussions. So the staff is very comfortable in that exchange with the citizen, with the supervisor, and without any kind of repercussions there. So I think that's mostly important, is that communication is a two-way street, and that flow is there for staff. And I don't know that it's been that way in the past. A lot of organizations, particularly public organizations, are afraid of or leery of public scrutiny. to me, bring it on.
Bring it on.
Because the eyes on the street.
That's how things get fixed. Yeah, that's how things get. That's how you correct course. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. My mantra is, what was my mantra? My mantra is no problem is better with time.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely the truth. If you don't know about it, you can't fix it. And I appreciate the citizens' eyes on the street, even if they're frustrated and angry. They all have that point that needs to be made, and we need to hear.
And I think a great example of that is, instead of sitting here and saying there's no challenges with permitting, we have tremendous challenges with permitting. The volume of permits are pouring in. We had Steve Poboski on here that was overseeing the permitting for an hour, explaining some of the common mistakes and challenges and misinformation and answering all kinds of questions, because we want to get that information out. You announced on Monday at the town council meeting that the state is going to help fund 4 additional people in our permitting division. That's a huge infusion of resources for our permitting division. So you've expanded the hours of the permitting division. So we're not saying everything's fine, because we know there's a massive amount of volume, and there's still challenges on the process a little bit. We're refining it. I think you talked a little bit about having a working group of contractors so we can hear from the customer as to what their experience has been. You've talked about creating a key performance indicators and start to metric not only the permitting department, but all of town government, where we can have a dashboard where the public can go on and see how many permits there are, what's the wait period, if there are various categories, how long is it to wait, and then the public can see, and then we can say, hey, we've got a problem in this area, let's triage it, let's get more resources there, let's see if there's any systems problems. I mean, this concept of transparency is almost revolutionary for Fort Myers Beach, I think, going forward, because there's a lot of suspicion, a lot of concern, some of it's legitimate, and with respect to the permitting side. So talk a little bit about the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and how you want to utilize those to make government more transparent.
Right now, setting those is probably fairly easy, because we have a lot of activity that needs to occur. We have to get people back in houses. We have to get permits. We have to open up public access to the beaches. We have to open up parking spaces. So those things that are easy to count. And so I think it's pretty easy right now to set those performance indicators. And tomorrow I'm rolling this out to our department directors, as a matter of fact, that I want you to tell me what your activities are. I have some ideas, but I want to hear from them on what their activities need to be for us to recover the item. When you get more towards your recovery, it becomes a little more almost subjective of what are your performance indicators. And you're not counting activity anymore, but you're counting towards goals. And sometimes those goals are hard to quantify. So then there's a learning curve on how do I quantify some of these things. Is I'm not counting permits anymore, but I'm counting improvements in our system and our software. And that's a little more difficult, but right now I think it's going to be pretty easy to set those indicators.
Steve, I've got some broader questions for you, but I know you've got some points to make and get information out to the public. I don't want you to miss anything on your list before I do so.
One thing that I know there's a lot of concern about is the FEMA emergency berm that's to be planned right now, it's being planned and to be installed. And people are afraid it's going to block their view to the Gulf, because on the plans, it says 6 feet. Well, that 6 feet is from sea level. It's not 6 feet from land surface behind your house. So the existing dune system here really is about 1.5 feet high above land surface. And that's what's going to be recreated. So people, I don't think, need to fear that even if they're still on grade, still, at that level, it's not going to block the view of the water. So we want to really address and educate where that's an accurate perception.
I just ran into Bill Perry, who's doing a lot of the raking and beach sort of rejuvenation, if you will. And he stressed, and I agree with this, it's so important. In fact, maybe in one of these shows we could get maybe Chad Schutz, the townsperson, as well as Mike Poff, our engineer, who's excellent, by the way, for a consultant. If we could get them on the show to talk about the easement process, to answer questions, because in the past there's been people that have been frustrated with what happened. There's a lot of questions. In my condo association just looked at the easement. We just had a broad discussion of all of our owners, and there's not a lot of you see the document, which is a relatively legal document, but there's not a lot of color around it or detail around it.
Right.
So if we could have maybe a discussion here where we could ask some of those common questions, and they could talk a little about what the pros and cons are, because it's not mandatory. People can opt
Right,
out.
that's not bad.
But in certain areas of the island, it really potentially, where we are on the south end, it would be really disadvantaged. Would be a disadvantage if we opted out. And so I think what it looks like everybody in our condo association has agreed to sign that easement. So I think it's important to get that information out on that, but I'm amazed at what's happened to the beach thus far. The renourishment of the beach, which is planned for this coming year and next year to some extent, with help from the county and the state and the feds. I mean, the beach is going to be spectacular.
It is. And two other points there is, along with that easement comes the 15-year monitoring period of the state. And people say, well, I don't want government on my property for 15 years. But what that does is it assures, and Bill pointed this out yesterday at the meeting, it assures that you've got a grade away from your structure to the Gulf of Mexico. And you don't have that big dip there where water is going to accumulate and turn green and develop algae, that sort of thing. So it will assure that that's always happening, that monitoring and the vegetation on the berm. And the other point is the goal would be to get every property. And I don't know how many that is, it could be 1,000 properties, the construction easements there, and that's a legal document. I know people are concerned about that, and you need an attorney to review it. And of course, do whatever you're comfortable with. But I did want to dispel the perception of blocking a visual line and what it means to have that 15-year monitoring period there. So the dunes they protect. I looked at a site yesterday where there's a path from a house down to the beach that was prior to the storm that's now a huge scour with water. Since it rained, water's 5 feet deep in that scour. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to be able to have a good, solid dune system there to help protect you. And a category 4.9, no. But the average Cat 1, Cat 2 type storms is what will help. And the beaches are still there. The width is great. What we've lost is a couple of feet in elevation. And we need that elevation to keep the water back in those more typical storms.
Pretty good.
That's kind of the big one. The post office is open.
I was there yesterday,
Thank
and
you very much.
well, a lot of people helped on that. But I tell you what, you can get your mail there. There's PO boxes available if you want to utilize a PO box. Obviously, those who had them before have priority, but there are empty ones. I talked to the person there yesterday. You can mail a letter. You can buy stamps. You can mail a package. And one of the things that was most encouraging, I took a tour of there was a whole crew, a construction crew, different crew there to renovate the actual post office itself. And they tell me, worst case scenario, that post office will be, the original post office will be up and running before the end of August, which is very encouraging, which will really help the Postal Service then get back out to the mailboxes for everybody's home. But just talking to the folks there yesterday, people are so grateful just not to have to drive to the airport to get their mail. It's really a blessing, and people have really been kind to help get that thing going. So we're really encouraged by that. Keith, I want to ask you a little bit about your world as we wrap up. This is such a bizarre question given the bizarre world in which you're living in right now, but is there such thing as an average day for Keith Wilkins? And tell me about your average day.
Average day here
Yes.
is absolutely, it's making sure that the boxes are checked for our recovery operations. That's both the revenue sources that can come into us and the grant sources that come into us, complying with federal requirements on deadlines. Like yesterday was the deadline for us to get in on mitigation projects, and we got that in.
Use the term mitigation project. What do you mean by that?
Those are projects that will help reduce damage in future events, create a more resilient community and resilient coastal environment.
A couple examples.
Elevating our lift stations. I mentioned that earlier. Elevating those lift stations is an example. Actually, that FEMA dune is a mitigate. It's not covered under that program, but that's a mitigating thing. It'll reduce damage in the future. Elevating houses, elevating town hall, when we build town hall, will mitigate future damage. So projects like that. And then there's a meeting to follow up on that on the 30th with the county to kind of make sure we're all meshed together with our mitigation projects, because it is a competitive process. So all that disaster recovery is probably number one. And number two, right there with it is our customer service, our permitting, and how we relate to the community and to our employees themselves, that we're supporting one another as well as supporting the community.
Excellent. What's the fire du jour today? What's the fire you're putting out today?
Fire today is actually meeting with the fire department about how we interrelate with them on our permitting process, because there's been some glitches there, and that's public safety. That's of the utmost importance.
And so, for example, sometimes when people apply for a permit, or the term of the industry is pull a permit, they have to get a blessing from both the town and the fire department.
Correct. If it's a commercial facility that's cooking, serving dinner, there's fire hazards there. We need to make sure that we're not processing the permit for your zone, your zoning is correct, but also that you've got making fire safety, and that loops fire into our permitting process.
What are the challenges when you have two different entities having to approve a permit?
Communication is always the challenge. Number one challenge. Number two is making sure that happens in a timely fashion, because one agency may take longer than another. They may have a totally different type of review that requires a site visit, whereas the other one's looking at a piece of paper. So the timing there, when everybody's in a hurry to get their lives back online again, I think timing is a real challenge.
Excellent. I always like to ask the people in your position, what, either literally or figuratively, what keeps you awake at night right now in terms of your role down here in Fort Myers Beach?
Well, one is I have a commitment to return every phone call, every email within 24 hours. And not that I always accomplish that, but I work very hard. I work very hard to do that. So I'm up at, this morning I was up at 3:45, getting into my email and start returning that before I get into work, because during the day I have no chance to look at emails. So that literally does keep me up at night. I wake up thinking, okay, time to go return email and communicate with people.
So anything else that you want to convey out to the public? You've been here you've been part of the team now for quite a while, but you've been literally on the ground is this week 3 for you or week 4 for you?
Actually, this is week 2.
Week 2.
Full time. Yeah. Maybe started week 3. Maybe started week 3 for me, yeah.
Anything just based upon your experience thus far, particularly being on the ground, that you want to convey to the listeners this morning?
A couple things. One, and someone brought this up yesterday at the council meeting, was patience. That we're all working hard. We have city employees, and I forget this, and it embarrasses me that I forget this, but we have town employees that have gone through the same thing. Their houses have been destroyed or heavily damaged. And when they leave here trying to serve the public, they've got to go home and deal with those same situations. And I forget that sometimes. And so I really would like for everybody to try to be patient. I know it's frustrating to not have your life back online again, but I'd like everybody to take a deep breath and just be more patient. And then I'd like to thank this community, because this community has just been tremendously welcoming to me, and it's been wonderful. My wife is here now too, and for a month, and I told her, I said, it's just so nice to have dinner invitations to start seeing people that I've met before, seeing them again and know somebody, at an event. And I think the people here are wonderful, and like I said, been so friendly and accommodating and welcoming, and I just really appreciate that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your service to the town of Fort Myers Beach. Thanks for listening, everybody. And again, if you like what you see and you think, particularly if you know somebody who might be interested in one of these positions, please share this interview on your Facebook page or text it to somebody that you know who might be interested in one of these positions. We appreciate you listening, and thank you for being with us today. God bless. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone ready? Good morning. Today is Monday, January 23rd. It is 9 o'clock for a regularly scheduled town council meeting. All council members are present, including the town manager, town clerk, and town attorney. Would you please rise for the invocation and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?